wormholes, particle physics, extra dimensions. Are the wonders of so-called reality really what they appear to be? Or do we exist in an elaborate hologram? Is our universe the result of random activity or the result of intelligent design? If a creator was involved, can we discover him through our perception of divine order? This is Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck.
What do the Torah codes have to tell us for today? In studio with me, my lovely, beautiful, still pregnant wife,
yes,
Christina Peck. And even though we're recording this and it's going to air as soon as possible, you might not be pregnant anymore by the time that this airs.
By Thursday,
who knows? It's any day now. And we are joined in studio. It's our great honor to welcome Richard Shaw Into the Multiverse. Richard, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing great.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. It's so good to talk to you. Last time we talked was on the Sharpening Report and had a thrilling 3-hour conversation.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
No one's going to listen to this, but I guess people did.
Yeah, they loved it. A lot of positive feedback. But it's because it's interesting, timely stuff, and it's for Christians today. This might be people's first time watching this show. So for those out there who might not know, where can they find us online?
First off, welcome if it's your first time. And you can find us at youtube.com/Into the Multiverse, or go to skywatchtv.com. You can scroll down. You'll find a picture of Josh and I with the words Into the Multiverse. You can click on that and it will bring you here. Or you can check us out on Roku every Thursday.
Good deal. Yeah, make sure you check Skywatch TV. That's the channel under Roku, and you'll find Into the Multiverse there. You'll find Sci Friday, Skywatch Women One-on-One, the main program, daily updates, lots of interesting content.
All good stuff.
All good stuff. Well, I want to jump right into this. I'm gonna hold up the. Hopefully, there's not going to be too big of a glare. This is the the film, The Torah Codes, which you were in the studio a while ago to talk about, but you also have some new information today that I was thrilled that you told me. But before we get to that, just for those who might not be familiar, what are the Torah Codes? What's the Torah Code documentary about? What's your body of research?
Well, I was always intrigued with the Torah Codes from the late 90s. I had latched onto a book by a guy named Michael Drosnin, and he had written a book called The Bible Code. And on the front of it was a table, a Torah code table, and it said, Yitzhak Rabin, assassin will assassinate. Now, he found that code a year before Rabin actually was murdered. And so he didn't know what to do with this because it was all kind of a new thing. And he had met Professor Eliyahu Rips in Israel and had worked with him on some tables and was taught how to do it and all of that. And so he tried to alert the security forces in Israel that there's this thing that came out of a 3,000-year-old text, and it says that Rabin is going to be assassinated. He tried to actually warn people, but they didn't know what to do. In fact, at a certain point, well, is this guy going to assassinate Rabin himself? So he couldn't really harp on it too much because he didn't know, first of all, how it was going to happen or when. All he could show him was this table that it's supposed to happen. A year later, indeed, Rabin was assassinated, which really made him think, okay, there's really something to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Then later they went back into that same table and found the name of the assassin also encoded in that same table.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Which they would have never known to put in. And basically what this is, the Torah is encoded. There is a mathematical encoding in the Torah, and there always has been. And the encoding stretches through time and into our current day. I mean, there's people are mentioned that we know. My company's mentioned in the Torah Code.
Oh, wow.
It's really crazy. The program we did was mentioned in the year 5775 that it came out is mentioned in a table.
Wow.
So all of these things are require some discernment on how do I really parse this information. Do I take it seriously or do I not? Or why is it in there? But what happens is when you get several names that are crossing each other and in parallel rows, and basically like the table that Professor Rips found on 9/11, which is really amazing. It says airplane terror attack, and 9/11. And that all came up in the book of Numbers, in chapter 20 of the book of Numbers. And he printed it all out in those days on a tractor feed printer, where you had the long page.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he has the whole, book printed out, in Hebrew. And here, there was like a spurious little word, like here and there, but when it came down to this 9/11 phenomena, it was all clustered together in chapter 20. Everything about 9/11 was in that one little spot.
Wow.
So it's like, well, that's got to be more than coincidence.
Yeah.
So this is what keeps me really kind of wondering about the validity of the codes. So recently what's happened is the rabbis and the professors, especially Rabbi Matityahu Glazerson, has been looking at gematria and Torah codes. Now, they're two separate things.
Okay.
Torah codes are like a skip code, and it's ELS. It stands for equidistant letter sequencing. And basically, it's like, okay, I'm looking for this guy's name. So we look up Josh Peck. Is it in there? And this isn't like Google. It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Because there could be, 10,000 Josh Pecks through history.
Yeah,
or
very true.
referring to people we don't know that aren't born yet. We just don't know. So sometimes you have to reference it with things that this person has done. And we actually did that because George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM is a good friend of LA and mine, and he wanted to know what the Torah said about his name. So I sent it to Professor Rips, and I said, this guy is a really nice person, and I think we should do this for him. So they all got to work on it. It took them 3 weeks.
Wow.
Whoa.
But it comes back with George Norrie, radio broadcaster. Of course, everybody knows that's what he does, in the USA. And another one said that Rips found in a complete sentence. It said, George Norrie, radio, loves the paranormal but clear cut.
That's exactly his personality.
And I looked at that and
wow.
I'm going, what? I was astonished by that. And then Professor Herlick found one with George's name in there and the whole deal, radio, all that stuff. But it was in a tiny little table, just a few letters, and it was posted during the part where Joshua went in to take over the cities of the Nephilim. And that's where all of George's words were. Stuff like that is really interesting.
Yeah, and who would even think to make that connection? Because first you have to connect the Nephilim with the modern alien, abduction phenomena.
But they don't force that in.
Exactly.
No, not at all.
It just lands that way. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what's been happening now. In fact, Glazerson did one for me. I don't ask him to do these. He just does them and sends them to me. But it says Torah codes in 5775, referring to our film, and right next to it, just in parallel rows, it says Richard Shaw.
Wow.
Whoa.
It was like right by, the program we did. And then he has another one that says Torah codes 5775 will be distributed.
Whereabouts in the Torah is that found?
I would have to go back and look. It might have been in the book of Deuteronomy. It just depends on the size of the skip that happens.
Does the verse or cluster of verses that it's found in, does it always have something to do with what you're looking for, or is it just sometimes there's a parallel there?
Oh,
Like with George Norrie and the Nephilim reference.
yeah, that's totally random. There's no way that the software can just do that.
Right.
Wow,
Because then
yeah.
it's like fake. It's like, oh, we're putting it over this other thing, make it even stronger.
But do
That's
you
not what
find that as like a
happens.
common thing, like the verse will have something to do with what you're...
Doesn't happen very often.
Oh, okay.
It sometimes
okay.
happens. Like there's another 9/11 Torah code that says basically 9/11 terror attack, and then it's over the verse that said, and fell that day 3,000 men.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow. Oh,
Wow,
wow.
so
That's
sometimes
what
it's-
happened. Wow.
I think that's LA's favorite table that
Yeah.
I showed him.
That is incredible.
But the other ones that are coming out now are really kind of delving into Jewish mysticism a bit.
Oh, really?
And yet it's stuff that's in the Bible and also in some of their other texts. Because right now they just feel, because of world events and current events, that they're looking for the Messiah.
Right.
And the funny thing about the Jews and the rabbis that are deeply involved in this, they're not at all put off by the idea of UFOs, Planet X, all those things. They're really nonchalant about, oh yes, well, scriptures say that in the end of days that all these things have to happen first. So to them, it's just like they want information about it. Anything.
Yeah.
You know, so I had mentioned about, you know, Planet X to Rabbi Glazerson, and he started looking up tables for it. And so he finds tables that say Planet X, in the end of days, Messiah. And then it falls over this text, which I have here on my phone. In chapter 24 of the book of Numbers, it says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Now you have to also understand that the year 5776 was encoded right next to this.
Oh, wow.
And is that this year or?
That's this year. And
according
if you remember, like NASA came out with this thing. There's some kind of a planet on the edge of the solar system
Right.
that's really big, and it's not near. And that's basically, I said, so Glazerson, you're telling me if I take the word he, I see him, but not now, and if we assume he's talking about a planet, then all of a sudden, you know, and sometimes scriptures mean more than one thing.
Right.
You know, it's just like how you interpret it, and you know, and I'm not saying that this is, you know, proof or anything like that, but it is really interesting, and we keep finding these really strange things.
Wow. Well, should we be using the Torah codes to try to predict the future? All this and more when we come back.
Jonathan Cahn, the best-selling author of The Harbinger and Mystery of the Shemitah, brings his brand new book to Skywatch TV. The Book of Mysteries, officially released September 6th. It's a story, a journey, and a daily devotional like no other. And when you order the Book of Mysteries from Skywatch TV, we'll include The Mystery of the Shemitah, 2 Jonathan Cahn DVDs, The 6 Heavenly Entities, and The Cosmic Bride and Bridegroom, 2 free promotional gift books, and a 1-year subscription to the new Skywatch TV magazine. It's a total value of more than $100, yours for just $25. Or you can order a 10-pack, 10 copies of all the books and DVDs, gifts for your friends, total value of more than $1,000, yours for just $199. This offer is only available from Skywatch TV. Order the Jonathan Cahn Book of Mysteries bundle today by calling toll-free 844-750-4985. That's 844-750-4985. Or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.
Welcome back to Into the Multiverse. I definitely want to jump right back into this. Before the break, you had mentioned a table about a possible Planet X or Nibiru at some point this year.
Right.
How do we as Christians interpret that? Like, what should we do with that information? Should we expect that, or could it just be that it's in there because people are talking about it?
Well, I mean, if you don't know anything about what Planet X is or Nibiru, I mean, it's been talked about for decades. I mean, originally, there was a book that came out in 1950, Worlds in Collision, by Immanuel Velikovsky, that basically where he took references in historical texts all over the world and said something massive happened, and it probably was a planet or a comet. He even postulated that the planet Venus was what did it, and it came really close to the Earth, and then Venus ended up in another orbit, and it still has an 800-degree Fahrenheit temperature on its surface, which is kind of unexplainable why that is. But whether that's the case or not, we have no way of proving that. We don't really understand that. A lot of people think that Planet X swings by the Earth approximately every 3,600 years. Other people believe that, you know, it caused the flood of Noah. I know Rabbi Glazerson, because of his studies in the Midrash and in the Talmud and Kabbalah and, you know, the Torah, he believes that a planet came close during those days and affected the Earth, skewed its axis, and said, in fact, our calendars may be way off because of this. They couldn't really keep track of what year it was for a while.
Wow.
And that's kind of interesting. And they all expect it to come back. Now, there's another researcher. There's many more researchers. There's Gil Broussard. There's Doug Elwell. There's Bob Fletcher and Marshall Masters, who are all working on this whole Planet X scenario thing. They all believe that it's on its way back here, and saying that's why we're having so many volcanic eruptions and earthquakes in strange places, and that there's something causing all of that, something that's a perturbation of the Earth, per se. But then what the rabbis believe is that this planet or this star, or whatever it is the sign of the coming of the Messiah, which is interesting because in Doug Elwell's book, he's using the passage in Matthew 24, which I actually sent to Rabbi Glazerson. I said, here's the Christian perspective on the same thing we're talking about here, but I just thought this was interesting. I just would like you to see this.
Oh, wow.
Because it says that, after the tribulation of those days, then the sun shall be darkened and the moon will be turned to blood, the stars will fall from heaven, and then shall the sign of the coming of the Son of Man appear in the heavens, and all the earth shall mourn.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, well, why would that be?
Right.
What would they be mourning about?
How did he react to that? Because he's not, at least right now, he's not a Christian, right?
Well, he's into Judaic, studies. So, but never have I been with a rabbi with such vigor on trying to understand the scriptures.
Yeah.
So, Lazerson is a guy I love very much, and so we have differences of opinions and things, but that's okay because we actually are kind of learning from each other.
That's awesome.
And I think that's really neat, you know. And I'm not any expert in Hebrew or ancient Hebrew. I'm a filmmaker, but what he says really intrigues me, and because it's a different point of view than I get, going to any Christian church. No one's studying this stuff like this. This is really deep study.
Yeah.
So I think that he has some really interesting points there, and they seem to interlock. I mean, they're way closer to what Christians believe than they understand that they are. And of course, a lot of them, the ones that are real Orthodox rabbis would be appalled at the thought that that's possible. But I think we're coming to a point where things are becoming clearer.
Wow, that's amazing.
Now, going back to more about Planet X and the Torah codes and things like that, I was wondering if you put more, it seems that the more information you put in about something, the more information you get back. More keywords, I should say. What other...
How does that work?
Yeah, how does that work? Yeah.
Well, mostly they all refer to it as being a priori, chosen in advance. These words we're going to select a bunch of words and see if they all end up in a table. A table is like a selection of words that the computer puts up on the screen. And it's a complicated process for the software to do, and we end up seeing what looks like a crossword puzzle, sort of.
Okay.
But basically, you say, I want to look to see if Planet X and this year come together, and the word Messiah comes in there, and maybe something else, you know. And what's interesting about Rabbi Glazerson is that he really understands the ancient wording of the Torah and how people said things and phrased stuff. And someone just looking for Torah codes may not know that.
Right.
You know, the ancient Hebrew for something and how they would express it, you know. So he does that, and sure enough, he ends up with table after table with Messiah, you know, Nibiru, end of days, various years. And right now we're looking at the years 5776 and 5777 because the Torah uses the Hebrew calendar. You know, so 5776 is 2016 and 5777 is 2017. These two dates in particular come up a lot with the words Messiah, son of David, you know, son of Jesse. Sometimes it'll come up, you know, it'll say these things and those years. Now, in my conversation when I was here last time with Tom Horn, I know he had just written the book Zenith 2016.
Right.
Which, and we're both kind of scratching our heads going, why has the number 2016 come up so many times? And neither one of us know why, but it is, you know, and there's not much time left in this year in the Hebrew calendar. 2016 ends next month in the month of September.
Right.
So then it flips to 2017, really. Okay, which is like according to their understanding of numerology, the 777 is the number of completion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, we even see that all over in the Book of Revelation and everything.
Right.
And also 5 would be grace.
5 is grace.
So that's interesting too. Well, for next year, what types of things do the Torah codes produce for what we would recognize as 2017?
Well, he's looked up stuff on Donald Trump, and he's looked up stuff on.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was, you know, an assassination, you know, fear about Trump and all
Right.
that, and he's looked up stuff about that, and apparently Trump will be okay, or we don't know if he's going to be elected or not yet, but I'm sure we'll have new tables on those kind of things, just because I told him, I said, you should probably do some tables on Trump and on Hillary Clinton, because everybody's interested in that right now.
Yeah.
And just to see, because he did a table, and I don't know what we can say with that, and I'm certainly not saying, the table says this, so this is going to happen, and
Sure.
we never will do that. And Professor Rips and I communicated just 2 weeks ago because there was a Romanian paper that said Rips said so-and-so, there was going to be a war start in September. And so I got a hold of Glazerson right away, because sometimes Professor Rips is hard to contact. He's kind of elusive sometimes. A great guy. But Glazerson said, I can't imagine him saying that. I said, I can't either, because he doesn't ever want to use the Torah codes to make predictions. He's been very
Right.
clear about that.
Right.
So I said, can you ask him when you see him? So I got this long letter from Professor Rips, really sweet as always, saying that no, he doesn't. It wasn't him. He didn't make those predictions, and won't make predictions using the Torah code tables, and not because he doesn't think that they could, but because we can't interpret the data yet. It may
Right.
just be that people are talking about all this stuff happening, so it ends up in the Torah code tables.
Right, and you've come
Right,
across
right,
things
yeah.
like that before,
Oh,
right?
many times.
Yeah.
But yet other times we've seen stuff actually happen, and a great example of that was the election of Bibi Netanyahu.
Oh, right.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right,
that
I remember
actually,
that.
Glazerson did this table about, 3 weeks or so before the election last year. And it said Bibi, which is short for Benjamin, Netanyahu will be elected, on March 17th, I think it was. It said that. And,
Wow.
and everything about his election, all the technical details were in this table. So he sent that to me like weeks before the election. So then I'm hearing the mainstream media saying, well, the race is really close. We don't know if Netanyahu is going to win this time. And I'm looking at this table and going, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And he won by a landslide.
Wow.
My goodness.
What do the absolute most recent, like right up to today, what are the most recent Torah codes that have been done say or show?
Well, it's interesting because it's like I was saying, and I didn't really get to explain earlier because we were going off in so many areas, and this is, we could talk for hours like we did the last time. But Gematria is also discovering things, and Gematria is basically where every Hebrew character has a number, and you add them up. You look at a scripture, and it says, "Come back to me, and I will come back to you." Which is it's in Isaiah. I'm trying to remember where it came from, but Glazerson, you add up all those letters, and it said 776, and then the return of the Messiah 776. I mean, it kept. There were all of these scriptures that added up to 776. So I had asked him, and I'd put this up on our website so people could see this, because I can't explain it. I don't know why there's so many of them. And I was talking with Tom Horn about this because, it's like your book. I don't know why we're getting all of this 2016 data. So I don't know what that means. Does it mean that there was this announcement made that there was a planet on the edge of our solar system this year, which indeed did happen? Or does it mean that we're going to start seeing something possibly? Of course, then if you go into the other aspect of it, the non-Jewish aspect, and look at the Christian line of what is supposed to happen, there's supposed to be this Antichrist character appear somehow before this really massive thing does happen. And so that they don't really quite understand about the abomination that causes desolation, even though it's in the Old Testament in Daniel chapter 8, as well as in the New Testament for the Christian communities. That's something that they don't really touch upon that much because they're mostly interested in the Torah. The Torah is they concentrate on that over everything else.
Wow.
Fascinating, though.
Yeah, it really is. Well, with about a minute left, how should we as Christians, because there are some Christians who are nervous about the Torah codes, you know.
Sure. And I can understand
even
that.
comparing it to witchcraft or something.
Right.
How should we look at the Torah codes? What are they for, and what would be the wrong way to use them?
I think the wrong way is to try to make them say something that isn't true, or to use them as a predictive tool.
Yeah.
I think what Rips's thing was that when he first got a hold of the Torah, when he moved to Jerusalem after living in Czechoslovakia and being in prison in Russia for a while, he thought that the Torah was a book of miracles. And being a scientist, he was hoping it was true. But he had to prove somehow that this could be proven mathematically, since he's a math expert. And so he met this other rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yaniv, who had showed him the book that had been written by Rabbi Weissmandel back in the 50s, that had found this skip code that existed in the Torah. And so Professor Rips started with a couple friends of his to write software to search this on a computer. And back then, the computers were really, not very powerful, so they had to do that. And when they kept getting repeatable results, he realized that this is a mathematical thing. It just exists in the Torah. It's not like they're making something up. This is just there. So, I think it's for us in our generation, since we have these tools, we're supposed to dig it out and investigate it.
Amen. I completely agree. Well, we are all out of time. Again, check us out at skywatchtv.com. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you check out The Torah Codes by Richard Shaw. It's a fantastic documentary. And until next time, take care and God bless.
Finally, a book that helps you make sense of the hard-to-understand parts of the Bible. Skywatch TV is proud to offer The Unseen Realm by ancient language and Bible scholar Dr. Michael S. Heiser. He takes you into the world of the men who wrote the Bible under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and by understanding their worldview, you will better understand some of the weird parts of the Bible. Like, why was it so important to mention giants in the Old Testament? And why did Peter and Jude reference the angels who created them in the New Testament? The supernatural war between God and the fallen angels is real. The Unseen Realm helps you understand the way the apostles and prophets saw that war. And when you order The Unseen Realm from Skywatch TV, we will add these two books free: The Supernatural Worldview by Chris Putnam and G.H. Pember's classic Earth's Earliest Ages. Order The Unseen Realm now by calling the number on your screen or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.